Okay, well, welcome into this layered practice. We're going to be blending opening, releasings, and one thing I want to mention in this practice is that I teach is that we all have an awareness of stretching and trying to get an extra release in the body from doing some of the poses, but just kind of consider tightness can be stretched, but tension cannot be stretched. So part of this practice is to release tension. So the way you release tension is by first you have to create a sense of safety and support. So I use props for that, but not everybody's going to be in line with how I prop up everything. So this first shape that we're going to do is a supported bridge. Bridge pose could be shaped with the bolster lengthwise, like I'm going to demonstrate in the beginning. But if this is too much, like a barrier for you to feel safe and comfortable, you can also do this chest opener with the bolster across, okay? And you can just lay your rib cage this direction with a block in front like we've done previously, like that. I'm going to demo it a different way, so we have some variations. We missed out on some inversions last week, so I'm going to get those in. So we'll sit on the edge of the bolster on the short end. I have a blanket here at the base. You could use two blocks or a blanket. And sometimes the blocks are nice to have, actually. So I think you could just play around with it. But be sure there's something at the other side. So when you drop your head onto the floor, you got a blanket there. You can have it any height, you'll find out. So step your feet on the other side of the blanket roll. So now you're on the very edge of your short end of your bolster. You got a sandbag if you're using that nearby. I would just have it right in hand's reach. You can't sit on the edge of the bolster enough. And so when you lower back, you want to find that the respiratory muscles start to feel this openness. Okay, so as I lengthen back, my shoulders are on the bolster. So I have C7, the base of the cervical vertebrae, is not on the floor. So if you reach back with your fingers to your neck, you should have that base, that bone that sticks out at the base of the cervical vertebrae, that should be lifted. This way we can open up and change that postural kind of habit of our neck. Well, as we live in our body, year after year, it has more of that forward motion, prolapse with other things as well. So I want you to focus here on a sandbag across the thigh lids or the ribs and situate yourself to explore the reaching of your breathing muscles, right? So I got my head on a low height blanket, fold. I made my way to there. And as the arms expand out, feeling where the shoulders blend to roll back, and the expansiveness, that takes time, right? So to release tension, I mean, that's a life's work, and some of it's going to be your habitual, what you hold in. But when you're in this shape, do some waves of scanning in the body, the areas where it may feel the most detail of holding, especially with the breath's grasp. And as you let the breath out, feeling that you're beginning to land and arrive in your practice. You gift yourself closing your eyes and just breathing here now with the motion of the belly. Now, the ribs might be pulled tightly when you have a bolster beneath you. So the belly motion might be the most significant pattern of lifting that you can experience. But movement happens, releasing happens when you dedicate yourself to a shape you're supported in that you know is restorative. Just feeling the body begin to experience release. Let's just let the breath flow for about another minute or so, feeling where the shoulders center back. Okay, and it's okay if you slide back a little bit. That could happen. What I find is if I'm on the back of my skull, that kind of prompts my neck to lengthen. But if I was kind of sliding my chin down, I probably would feel some motion back, meaning maybe sliding. So you do want to be pretty high up on the shoulders on the bolster. And you can explore moving the arms lower, but not higher, right? So we want the heart to begin to regenerate and relax. And for the next few moments, just maybe scan the feel of the throat in this opposite pole of its daily habit, right? It's not usually in this shape with concentration, with awareness. So maybe swallowing, clearing the passageway. It also feels pretty much like a landing pad for me in my throat, compared if I was sitting upright, but I don't really notice that area as a base. It's kind of a tube of sorts, going down to the body. And now let's shift any sand. So sand goes away. Soles of the feet go together. Okay, so that would mean I walk the feet up. The knees are going to point out. I'm going to have my feet on the floor, not on the bolster. I could try to get them on the bolster, but I would most likely slide back and grip a lot. So it's the ideal of the inner energy right through the adductors, feeling that you're not only just pushing with your feet, but you might feel the knees lift up, not forcing them down. So if they kind of butterfly, that's a nice name for this pose, is butterfly pose. Just they might lift a little bit and lower back down. We're not trying to rapidly bounce the legs at all, or the knees, or the joint structure, but just feeling when you give yourself permission to explore when the feet are together, the knees motion out, and they may stay in a still position, but it's not still in the body, right? There's these definitely deep shifts happening along the pathway of the adductor, the groins, the leg pits, starting that lymphatic pump. Lots of lymph nodes at the upper inner groin. So just bring some awareness there where the feet touch. That's how you can find that sensation in the groins generally. It's what I consider where I can tap into that stretch. Other ways is when we move the leg way out to the side, which will go in the next few moments. But for right now, last few moments, feel the feet touching. And if it's too much to have the feet pushing together, of course, you could slide them apart and bring the soles of the feet to the floor and have the knees up. And you could take figure 4 pose, right? And let the inner thigh get a stretch. That way, if it's too much on the knee, right? This might be a little easier in the knee joint after a few moments than soles of the feet pushing. Maybe that goes well for 30 seconds, but then change is happening. So changing figure 4 both sides. We're going to repeat figure 4 today again. So if you opt out of it, you will find it soon, or it'll find its way into your experience. And then as we start to shift up, okay, feet step out. So they're a little wider than hips distance. Be easy on the knee variation. So I'm starting to work with my feet turn out a little bit versus trying to keep them boxed and parallel, because when I lift my hips and I try to move my bolster, my knees are going to be engaged a little bit. So I slide back. I just let myself slide a little bit back so the neck feels the blanket now, okay? And I'm going to let my feet push into the balls of the feet and lift up and then push the bolster to the side so it's across the back of your pelvis. And I've got to move a little down. So my hips are on the bolster, okay? My knees are going to swish side to side. And you might need to take a few moments because it can be the most challenging transition, I think, to get into inversion right here. So we bring the knees in, but I like how we find that completion of stretching the chest lengthwise and broad, right? I like that before we go into inversion. So you can have your blanket at the lowest fold, which I'm going to just stay with. And I'm going to add a moment here of just the knees bending, feeling the weight of the back of the pelvis. That's it. And then grab a belt. Okay, so find your belt. First things first, get a belt. And with the lift of the hips, it's kind of nice. You don't even have to spend energy picking them up in this position. You can just lie in your bolster and have the benefit of the back muscles elongating, the abdominals getting some strengthening. And then I just get the belt. It's in a loop. I got it all connected. So it may be too wide, but as I scoop up my feet, I'll just bring them straight up into Viparita Karani. So just reverse action to my heart. And then as I hold, you can let your elbows kind of sway out. It's kind of good to just play a little with it. Just feel the motion. If you're not feeling stable and supported on the bolster, you can always kind of shift down and move it. You do want to have as much of your pelvis on the bolster as possible. Otherwise, your back could be upset. Yeah, if your hips or your rear is on the other side, it can certainly cause discomfort. So as I hold, I'm going to start to bring my elbows out, hands are going to slide out on the belt, and then I'm going to slide my feet out. Okay. Now, no longer do I focus on my hands as wide as my feet. So I don't mind grasping the belt for a few moments to just find the wave of concentration in the adductors again. Okay. So leg pits. Now, when you're holding on to the belt, you can't quite see it. So I have a wide reach with my feet. You decide on the range, of course, that's personal. But when you're pressing, be sure your foot is not on the buckle. It's an invitation for it to unbuckle usually. And as I feel my hands hold on, I can let go anytime as long as the belt's connected. But just recognize that it might be a pretty wide stretch for you if you let go. It might feel like that's too much, so you can always make it a little smaller of a loop. Okay, so find what's a reasonable, not so jittery, but you know what jitteriness tells you is that there's tension, right? And one focus in restorative is to release tension holding patterns. So it might be kind of a gift for a few moments if the tension or the jitteriness goes away. But if it stays like you're kind of in a more of a tremor in the legs, maybe make the belt loop smaller. Okay. Bring your hands together. I like this version of the block sometimes between my hands at the wide setting. And then I just reach up so I have some commitment in my arms. And this is if your belt's connected. If you like to hold your belt, that's up to you. So I've just got my belt connected, feet in the belt wide. And then as my hands are not quite as wide as the feet because of the block, I have an awareness of pushing into the block and pushing out into the belt. Right? So it's an opposite action in the muscles, in the nervous system. And if you're holding onto the block and it's overhead, you could just lightly feel that pressure into the block. You don't have to spend all your energy push, 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 like when we had our soles of the feet together. But it is interesting having space between the hands, but still having the concentration in the shoulders as if they were pushing together, palm to palm. Okay, your shoulders, they may not have a brain to know that, oh yes, those hands are separated. They just activate as if they were together. Okay, so perhaps you close your eyes, just receiving the sensation and the hopes that the pose has benefits, right? For circulation, for the not only flexibility of the ribs, the breathing muscles, but yes, the legs and other parts. But as we reverse that flow to the heart, practicing softening the face, And there's a nice blend of concentration, kind of efforting to be in the right position to receive that circulation, but an awareness of the movement of the breath. And you can let go of the block, bring your knees to bending, reach to the belt, and then hold the belt and slide the feet together. And once they're in, I want you just to grasp a hold and slide the left foot down so the left leg lowers out of the belt, the right leg stays committed, straight up. And just kind of evaluate the lines of energy in the back of the leg, not to bring the belt to the back of your head today, just take a moment here, feeling that flow. If you feel like I really want to do brain float, it's completely up to you. Okay, so if you decide, I want to add that in, I was looking forward to it, you can put the belt to the occiput at the back of the skull and let your arms flow out, add a sandbag here, okay? You could hold on and have no sand on the thigh and just feeling the reaction. The nice thing about hands is that they might have some different pulling powers than your belt around your head, right? But let's say your hands don't like this grip. Well, make the loop a little bit smaller probably, and then just bring the hands together inside the loop. Just make sure the buckle's not on your hands and just stretch back. This doesn't mean you have to have a small loop. A small loop does feel more stretch, okay? But if it feels comfortable to extend the back line of the right thigh, either by hands, squeezing the belt, walking up towards the foot, hands together inside the belt, or the belt to the back of the head. It's a kind of a pure leg situation here. Okay, now with that left leg bending, first position the bottom of the left foot to the floor, whether you have sand on the thigh or not, you can always push it away or it'll go away. Go the left foot down, establish that reach on the left side of the back, the sacroiliac area. You want to feel stability there. Push down into your left foot. That's important here. Okay, and then when we move our arms, if you're holding back over your head kind of area, giving a stretch, bring the leg right back up to neutral, kind of verticality, straight up. And then just switch the left foot up. And then as you move, you're going to be moving from the sacroiliac area. So that's going to be on your bolster, right? But if you can kind of identify with when you're pushing, you're activating the rear muscle. When you're lifting the leg, right, you're activating more, just different areas, right? Back line of the leg, right? That went from contraction now to lengthening. So when you switch, right foot lowers down. And we might stretch the leg down, if that served you well, to reach through your thigh. Add a sandbag on the top of the thigh, perhaps. You can hold the belt, hands reaching up. You can reach it to the back of your head. Just make sure it's got enough width. It's got to be supportive so that you're not tensing to get the belt back there. There might be a moment of reaching with your head, but you're not, shaking the whole time with the belt. It might be a moment, though, of shaking with the leg. It definitely could be a little responsive. And if you're not with that one, you've got your hands, palms together. The belt is around the webbing between the thumb and the index fingers, and it's extending back. Okay, now what's extending is the back line of the body. Right, from the leg pathway, and all of its energy, right, is flowing through. So you're trying to stimulate that flow of energy in the back line of the body. Purely through the pose. If you stay kind of in one just, you kind of find your end range, right? See if you can find what you're going to be okay with, right? It doesn't need to be over the top, right? Even though the leg is hopefully not over the top of you. But finding what that end range is for this moment, right? For restorative, right? That's a little tricky. Where do you feel like it's supportive flow in the leg? It's kind of the next level work. Now you've kind of maybe graduated from some other kinds of practices that were defined. And we all had to find that same shape, and then we did it. But this is, feeling in your system, using the outline of the pose, and then finding a pathway into the body, into the awareness. And as the leg is up, now if your belt is behind your head, or if you're holding it with the hands pushing back, now when we transition, all we're going to do is, if you got sand on, slide it away. It'll go away on its own though, right? Walk the right foot in so the bottom of the foot pushes. Okay. Define that for a moment, the foot and the energy that goes up the back line of that right leg to bring some concentration and stability into the joints, not just hip, but ankle, knee, push. And then we're going to move our focus of moving the leg straight up, the left leg that is, and then reach up to the belt with just your right hand. And you're going to start to move the left leg to the right. I sometimes say the word swinging the leg, but that might be a little over action in the mind, where our leg can motion in the lateral rotator. So you can always put your left hand to that left hip and just kind of get a feel for where the muscles kind of blend together, right? They're all blending. It's all a big blend of muscles. Some areas you might feel they're, right close to the joint and can be, maybe irritated, maybe sore, or maybe it just feels like this is a pretty good stretch. Okay. So I like to keep in mind the abdominal separation. I don't want to round my back and squeeze my knee in. I want to push that left foot a little bit over and then downstream. So I can start to include the stretch now into the waist a little bit. Up to you. Left arm can be open. Yeah, feel the basin of the breath. Notice if that's belly full. You can turn your head either direction. You have to hold it still. It's, a pose that's restorative for you might be a little bit of movement into stillness, or stillness back into some movements. Okay, now that feels like enough time for my hip. So you might decide that you want a little more time, or you want to engage bending the left knee, just keeping it pointing to the right, just to kind of feel these other muscles that guard, right, to protect things like our knees, protect our back when it's feeling tight or overdone. So kind of feel where the knee is in that bending. It's kind of nice to include that. And then when you come back center, then you switch, right leg goes up. It could be still a micro bend, left leg down. I think the bottom leg part is what I need to keep reminding myself. The bottom leg can bend and move with the right leg. So if my right leg goes left, my bottom leg can also shift with the knee bending towards the left. I definitely don't like the idea of the straight leg pressed over. Well, at least in this moment. Maybe there's been a day I've said that, but I want us to find that the pelvis, and you're moving the pelvis and the sacrum together. That's important. So as I let my belly relax, I let my arm open. I could also put my right hand on the hip, and it's a little different on this side because I think energetically, I know there's a wall on this side. So I have some pulling patterns, like to prepare myself not to kick the wall, I think. So just notice where your tension is. I mean, it could be the space in your room. You're aware of this or that. See if you can close your eyes, or don't see, unsee. Closing your eyes so you can feel. And if you feel like I'm not in the right spot on this bolster, it just doesn't feel right, maybe you push back a little bit. And maybe that's just like the right. Now that's the right thing. So feeling connection. I'm working a little more on the feeling of the back of my pelvis, and it feels good. I feel as if this is the right thing to work with my leg bone. I want resistance for my bones. You know, in other words, bone density. I want to feel like I'm pulling. I have resistance up at the top of the leg. And that could feel like a sensation of stretch. Oh, just simply breathe. Head can roll to the right. Take a few more moments here. Bend the right knee. Nice. Come back in center. Both feet up. Okay, let's take kind of a completion cycle with the belt. And you can hold it, or if it's in a loop, it's already buckled up together, still buckled. You could just make it a little smaller loop and then bring the feet out. I would say smaller, not too small the loop so the legs are straight out, but well, they are straight up and a little bit out. So just that inner tundra, right? The circulation through the inner leg can kind of go back towards the groins, the leg pits, pelvic floor, right? The opposite of prolapse. This is a good thing. You want to be upside down. So arms can relax out. Okay, and filter a few breaths through your nose. Let it pass out through the nose or the mouth, whatever's comfortable when you're upside down. That can be a little more challenge to tackle the exhale through the nose upside down. Okay, now before we do big switcheroos, right, we'll do a little motion with the knees bending into your ribs. Hands reach up to the belt. Perfect. And then slide the feet together, knees bend, 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 and then take the belt off your feet. All right, find a ball, or if you don't have a ball, you want a ball that's, you know, at least 5 inches around. You don't want a tennis ball. If you have a soft ball or a block, you could use a block at its most narrow setting between the knees. You could use either. You could try both and decide for yourself. So we just have something between. So there's an idea of the legs as bands of muscles, right? And there's a lot of interesting muscle pathways here. But as I squeeze the ball, now that I've had that circulation drop down to the pelvic floor, this kind of wakes it up, back up towards the knees, right? It's not like you're dropping all the way to your center of gravity. You're trying to create some stability here before we go into our side sage poses, okay? So let the knees go side to side if you want to. And as you cross over, a hip lifts up at a time, right? So if I go to the right, my left hip lifts up. My arms could be just out to the sides. Now find so that you're kind of hands-free. And if it's tough for you to be hands-free and you like to hold on to your knees or your hips, that's okay. Just kind of feel what can happen so I can let go from holding so much with my hands. So imagine that circulation moves to your armpit chest, to the lymph there, right? Armpit chest is a really good area to feel some source of circulation and spaciousness, as it's usually kind of hunkered down next to the sides of you. And as you go side to side, you're feeling a little stretch in the side abdominals, I'd like to call it. So there's kind of side abdominals stretching. Okay. Now just imagine if you didn't have this bolster, right? It would cause a little bit of effort in your back to get this type of lift and to maneuver it. So the bolster is really nice to massage into the back. Now, as we come back into center with the ball, remove it, move it over to the left side of your practice space, and then go there. So how am I going to go there? What I'm trying to do is start to motion to my left. And then as I roll to that left side, I'm going to move my knees down and then slide down onto my left hip bone. Okay. Now your bolster is kind of in a perfect spot. So You're just going to have the blanket that's maybe still down there. I don't know if you're using it under your foot or your calf on that last little series. I didn't end up using it. Usually I think about it, but it didn't come into my path of awareness, I guess. So let's take your blankets. You're going to fold them up. If you already have them folded perfectly, great. But I want you to have 2/4 folds. So if you're not using blankets and you're using like 2 bolsters, some people might, since you might have a round bolster, you could have a round bolster here and your standard size bolster, the flat one on this side for under your head. I think this bolster height is probably too high for my head. So if I have a round bolster, I just probably use a blanket on the other side, 1 or 2. So get a block on the other side of your blankets and then get that sandbag. You need a sandbag, you need a ball. Be careful of your knees. If they're a little bit achy right now, get them closer together. Then we'll make our way into the side sage. So I've got my ball. I'm going to place it under my right knee, which is stretching back, left thigh right up to the bolster, and then add your sandbag to the outer right hip as you lean down with the left arm in the gap between the bolster and the blanket, or if you're using a bolster here. Okay, I suppose you could use like a pillow. Okay, so I'm going to kind of fuss around here with the block idea. So I sometimes will stack a couple blocks, but I'm trying to work on this field of motion in my side. Okay, so it looks like we're still, or we're trying to get to the still position, but I like to kind of fuss a little bit with it and feel how I can merge my body weight, actually really relax my weight on the props. So if this upper arm is not feeling like it can have even like 30% relax, then I got no business having my arm up overhead. So I might just put it down on my bolster or on my side. It could be something you feel for a few moments and then you come back down with the arm. But here's the key, right? That one of the focus points is to let your head relax. So if you have too much bulk under your head, it might make it tighter. If you have too little, it can also strain. So you want to find just that perfect, so study the feeling of your head relaxing so the neck can stretch. And just feel where the reaction is in your ribs. Alternating that in and out breath. Softening the face. The jaw. And just letting go. Now, if it's not just right, you can always move things. Like if your blanket there's just a little bit of movement down, you want to move to let your head lean, a little tilting on the blanket. Some people will put more bulk kind of at the left side of the jaw and then try to let the jaw rest into the blanket. There's a little more tilt in the head. To me, that's kind of the place that's the final frontier, is to get my neck to relax on this one. And you might even use more blanket or less. All this other stuff, the base area we're used to working with, the hip, the torso. Okay, so take the last few moments here. We're going to just enjoy that we're creating that reach in the rib cage. So we're just going to shift into a twist and let it be very, it's kind of a blend. This twist, I think, is how you would get towards a pigeon pose. If you kind of study it, it's a similar angle in the hip, but for those that have some knee discomfort, it's very easy. It's much more easeful. So as you come up, you can leave your sand if you want to try it. I'm going to try leaving my sand today and see why I usually don't. So I'm going to come up. I'm going to move the ball so my right leg joins my left foot, or I can stack my knees on top of each other, my thighs, And then I'm just gonna take one blanket away, okay? And I'm gonna turn the bolster up on top of that, the blanket that's horizontal, so I make a little bolster sandwich here. And then I'm gonna tilt so that as I turn to the left, because I kind of like sand, I like the weight bearing of it. It's not always easy when you're solo to put sand on your upper back. I know that. Some of you might do that. So create the twist like it's you can see how it's sort of an angled pigeon, right? It's just that you're not pointing your knee up. Like if it was pigeon, my knee would go here, but don't do that. So as you lean in, you can lower down. If you want to do pigeon pose right now, you could. You could move your bolster across your mat, I suppose, and pivot all the way, but find the benefit of the spine in its rotation. This is a nice kind of revolved core pose, actually. So when I turn the rib cage, I let the back space span, open. Relax your heart. Soften the heart. Now, if you do have a sandbag on, you want to move it off or see if you can reset it somehow. This might be a good opportunity, right? Don't over tense to try to get that sand perfect, right? So you decide, I'm going to see if I can get my left hand behind and grab a hold of the sandbag and shift it up. It might actually feel like a welcome kind of extra touch into your twist. And I think when we do our seated twist, this is a particularly difficult area to rotate and have it comply with your hope of direction. So feel what it's like when you just rest towards your heart. It might be a little bit easier to do twists this way. And it's always longer when you do a prone twist. You can do it longer and relax into it. You just take a few more breaths here. Now, if you need to come out, you do. And if you need to get rid of the sand or maybe do something else, that's okay. You know what I'm enjoying, before we shift the side, we are going to actually take a little bit of a kind of a lengthy intermission between the sides today. So it will be interesting. So when you do come up, first, if you get the sand on your back, I would just kind of push it away. So it's not an extra thing to push against. So when you come up, just move one of your blankets away. I think we'll just need our ball for what we're coming into and a blanket under your head. So you move your bolster off your mat, just a ball. Okay, have a blanket at I'm going to keep it at a quarter full because I like the comfort. And when you turn onto your back, what you're going to do is rotate and add a ball, center of the knees, and now your back is entirely supported by a mat. Well, maybe you got a mat that's supporting you. It should feel comfortable enough. So as I bring the knees downwards, but they're pointing up because I got feet below, and I got shins that support that lift of the ball. So take a moment where the feet push and you press into the balls of the feet and then lift the hips up. So maybe the heels are a little bit up with the heels. And then let the spine lower down. Okay. Now knees to the chest. Okay. So squeezing them in. Lower the feet down. You can tell that I'm not really using my hands pushing anything. I'm just kind of inquiry into my hips. So now you can have your heels up or your heels down when you lift your hips into bridge pose. And then you guide down the spine. And then bring your knees to your chest. Okay, now alternate with the arms reaching when your hips go up. So I'm going to put all the foot on the floor, both feet, and then lift my hips up and my arms overhead. Now, what might be interesting, if you have a block back there, right, you could also hold on to that block for a moment. And then when you lower down, arms are free of the block, spine down. Okay. So that time I just kind of made it a pretty kind of fizzled out bridge pose when I went down. Almost like to see how easy it could be. So you don't have to anticipate the highest lift in your hips. What I want you to get a feeling of is that subtle articulation down the spine, which might feel like it's a breeze. It's not a lot of effort. That's okay. All right, so that subtle articulation or spacing between the vertebrae. I'm a fan of the arms moving with this one. I have had times where I keep it like robot arms kind of thing, or goalposts, but I like that fluidity. I think that keeps things warmed up. Okay, now last one with this alternating reach, and we're going to roll on the ball, get a little massage. So if you are using a block right now, I don't think you're going to wiggle on the block to get a massage. So you probably need a ball. Okay, knees to chest, take the ball out. Now you're going to put the ball at the sacrum. So you're going to kind of be, they call it sacrum shear. I like to think of it as sacrum rock. I think the word shearing is a little interesting. But when you go across, you have the ball at your sacrum. The ball's big enough that sacrum tailbone. And you're just going to go side to side, just wag your tail. Okay. Feel enough movement that the feet have to step out a little bit. Now they could turn out a little bit, not excessive, but you might find, oh, that's interesting. I don't really look at my feet, so I don't know if they're turned out a lot or not, but I'm not trying to discipline them to be straightforward, parallel. Okay. Because hips turn out. Okay. It's like a basket, it reaches out. It's the weave of it moves outwards. It's not a box. Okay, now bring the right ankle to the left knee. I like this sometimes with the foot on the floor. Okay, or you can lift up your left foot, squeeze it in. Now, if your knees are like kind of sort of not into it, it's only a few moments, but I don't want you to feel like you have to stay in it if it's critically uncomfortable. So again, you can put your foot back to the floor, okay? Or you could hold the back of the left thigh and squeeze, okay? The ankle to the knee, though, is kind of important, right? So if I try to put it somewhere else to make it meaningful, it won't really work. I have to have it connected to actually get that response into my hip muscles. So this is the perfect, it has resistance in it for your hip, just because of the way the foot is placed onto the knee or above the knee. Okay, I like to have it just at the knee. I don't want to bring in myself into lotus pose. I never helped my knee. It was never therapeutic, so I'll just stick with this. All right, now when you switcheroo, take a little balance momentarily. Feel the spine centering. And then feel if you can bring the left ankle to the right knee. And when you're bending, you're moving your left knee out. Right? It's not going to your ribs. It might have to go to your ribs first, but you are trying to move it out. So when you hold the back of the right thigh, and if this is difficult for you, try doing this in a chair off and on, right? It would be a good practice to start to kind of lubricate into that hip joint, get some meaningful motion to correspond to the knee and the ankle. It's a good one. Take a few more moments, no rush. Now let the practice be where you're really taking care of yourself. So if you need to shift and do a little bit of this or that, it's always fine to return when you're ready. Okay, now as I start to relax my grip with the hands, I'm going to shift the left foot down, both feet down actually, And then I'm going to move the ball to the left rear and just motion side to side to create that massage or that pressure and movement glide into the glute. Okay, it's kind of gliding across the musculature, the surface muscles. So I try to, I say most, it doesn't always feel the same for me how I push into it, especially if I'm trying to stretch my hip over. I don't have anything under my back, just under my head. So I can weave the reach to my side, but the movement is key, right? You don't want to just try to push. You do enough of that stretch and reach. So have some movement, get some key kind of fire in there, heat, and then go to the other rear. And if it's kind of a bit of a, it just teases the tissue a little bit, that's okay. We want to kind of get some heat in there, fire it off, okay? Yeah, you don't have to put it in a kiln or anything, but just get a little warmed up. All right, so as you're kind of working with that modeling of the tissue, that's why I think of pottery, right? So clay, like you're trying to work with the surface muscles, the dermal layer. That's why massage is so cool, right? It's that touch on your largest organ and pressing across it. So again, you might use a ball that's softer than this. If you have one that's different and you like to use that, and you want to do this another time, I think this is a probably a meaningful thing to do for your hips, okay, and your core, pelvic floor. I mean, all these things are going to have to mobilize here. Okay, now let's come off the ball and then just swing the knees a little to the right and roll carefully. Come on up. Get a bolster. Just place it across the mat, horizontal, just across. Get your blanket stack. And if you need a little more padding under your hip after doing that roll stuff, because I noticed that because the ball's so soft that it's like, oh, now I feel like this floor is too hard. You don't want to sit on the ball maybe, but take a position here where you're onto that right side. We're going to go into side sage. So block on the other side could be a high setting. You could stack your blocks. So if you're going to go right into the pose now, go for it. But this is how you would stack them, right? You can have one at the lowest stable setting and the next one's turned a little bit higher. I'm going to try that. This is probably a little more soothing for my shoulder. But as I lean in, ball under left knee, sand on hip or no sand, all up to you, okay? So get a feel where the waist motion gives this interesting reach for the back muscles and the spine. I mean, you have a little bit of a complicated situation here with what you're working to regenerate and heal and restore. So when I try to find the shape, I want to find a way to be in it to turn on the body's natural healing right in these areas. So since I tend to roll back when I'm turning this direction when there's a screen, so what I have to focus on is stay on course, right? Right? You don't have to show any different variation. You want to show the variation here to let your head relax in the blanket. And if you're using a round bolster, right, you might have the round bolster to help lift up in the ribs. And as you settle your head down to the blankets, relax your eyes. And just notice where the bones settle. Yeah, I sometimes will bring focus to the arm that's between the bolster and the blankets. Because I think that what's nice about that is you don't have to focus on it. It does release easily for many of us. But maybe feel if I can reach it a little bit further over towards the left side. Relax the right hand. Kind of the yin and yang of the pose, right? The yin is like the right arm. The yang is the left. Okay, now noticing the neck, right? Sometimes the arm overhead could be too much after maybe 30 seconds or so for the neck. You might find that you have to roll towards the forehead. Some of us will roll to the back a little bit and have some movement with the neck. Let the left arm come down. You could keep the sand on your hip if you want, because it's already kind of setting itself there to support. You can move the ball away so the left knee goes to the right foot, and then just turn. Right. Sometimes having that sandbag kind of packed back there can be interesting when you take the twist because you have stability in the hip. Turn the bolster. Take your blanket on top. So you have a bolster ramp, right? You're building it. Well, you're building a ramp basically for your ribs and your back. And then when you lower down, you might find the surprise is that you could get your right and left hand back to help you move the sandbag. Okay, now if the sandbag falls off, it's just indicating that it's not in the right spot. Okay, so even if you go minus sand, which is just fine, it might be better for you. But when you lower your rib cage down, remember that the twist focuses on ribs kind of first, the midsection, because that's our twisting vertebrae, right? That's the ones that go directionally connecting to the rib cage. So let the heart relax, let your arms flow either open, or if you want to hug the bolster, give it a little bit of a hug. Now with the last few moments here, just take a conscious release with the neck. If your head turning to the left is too much pull, you could just kind of move your blanket up to the edge of that bolster and bring your forehead down. So there's no twist in the neck. That might feel nice for your neck to have that length. You can kind of feel the base of the cervical vertebrae, right? You might even notice that kind of softens here. This can be nice to do. Let it soften. Okay, now if you can feel where the energy goes in the hip, right? We're going to be eventually motioning in a few moments to pigeon. So this places some weight there. If you don't practice regular pigeon, we will have options. We'll have seated pigeons. Okay, both sleeping and seated. So hands down, if you want to stay in the pose, you can. Right? If you decide, I'm not coming up, I'm just going to take a nap, you could do that. So you can slide the sand off if you're ready. And just take a little bit of the knees stacking. Okay, you might have to push your ball away there. And then come around to hands, knees. Okay, so let's move our bolster a little bit here. Let's get rid of one blanket. Turn your bolster across. If you need a blanket under your knees, this is the perfect moment to put it there, this other blanket, right? So I'm going to move back close to the wall. So I guess what I need to do is pull my bolster blanket with me. Okay. So my feet touch the wall. My hands reach on top of the bolster. And I stretch the chest. Okay. Now, when the hands are in a wide reach, you're going to let your head just lower a little bit. Span through the ribs. Okay, now walk your hands to the right. Now I'm going to show a variation right now. So if you don't want to put weight on your hands to go forward and back, you're going to walk your hands to the right. And then the next few moments, you're going to walk your hands to the left. Okay, that's option one. Option two would be turn your hands out, move your hips down and your chest up, and then stretch the hips back to alternating up and child's pose. Up dog and child's pose, not up child. I guess it could be up child and in child's pose, huh? All right, so feel that movement through the pelvis. And if your hands are over to the right side by now, feel the movement of the pelvis stretching back. So it's that core motion. Okay. Now, coming back is an option with the hips up. So if, let's say, you're not going to practice weight into your hands right now, you come back to more of a child's pose, knees wide, hips back towards the feet. Now, the rest of us might take it to downward dog, lifting the knees up, but really see if you can use your feet to push into the wall. The heels are lifting. That's what I mean. Don't kick the wall. And if this is too much on your hands, but you like the feeling of a little bit of this upside downness, you might either step your feet wider and walk your hands back. So you're even wider than this. I just don't want to slip slide away, but you could go a little wider so that you have that inversion, but not the pressure on your hands. Okay. And some of us might be in child's pose, right? So that might be a little different variation for your arms. But all is to release the back line, soften the back. And you can tell this one affects you a little bit because it sounds like whenever anyone does an inversion, they sound like they got a cold. Okay, it's good stuff. All right, now come on forward, walk it on front. And then as you turn to motion down to, well, you're not turning yet, to the knees. Let's try this. Let's put our bolster across the mat. And we're going to get a couple blocks. Okay. So whether you're striving for this quad stretch, I want you to use the blocks to support your reach. So I like to use the wall as often as I can for connection into my feet. So I'm going to take a step forward with my right foot. Now you might kick your bolster a little bit here. And as you lean into it, let the left thigh stretch down the quad on the bolster. So my left foot touches the wall a little bit. I'm a little too close to it. So I'm going to move slightly forward. But use the bolster to touch up into the thigh. If your left foot is pushing the wall, like the ball of the foot, it might be too much into the knee. I know it's your foot, but it might respond in the knee quite a bit. So be a little cautious with that. Does anyone feel it in the front of their thigh? Yeah. You know, I find I usually teach this with a bolster lengthwise, but I don't know, change it out, bolster across, bolster straight up and down the quad, up to you. But get that feel of, you know, maybe it's not just the muscle belly of the quad that kind of feels a little tightening up. Maybe the inner thigh has a little stretch too, tiny bit, because the bolster touches. Okay. Now lifting a little through the chest, use your blocks at the highest setting. And then as you come back center, toes hook under. Push, use your legs as much as you can when you step forward. I'm using my hands more than I need to. So I've got to kind of use my fingers on the block like I spider the hands, so I'm not pushing my wrists. Use these bigger muscles and then step forward. You can take a forward fold if that feels pretty nice for you, to just let your back line extend, up to you. Head releases. Back to that funny sinus feeling. Some days I notice that more than others, even if I'm not congested. Just the forward bends are quite the flushers. Hands on the blocks or lightly. Right foot steps back. Okay, take that low lunge. So press back into the heel and lower down through the knee and feeling that stretch through the front of that right thigh. Okay, so just encouraging where the waist has a little bit of lift. I don't know, I feel a lot of quad energy on this one. So to get my torso to lift up, it feels like I have to push a lot into my hands. So what you might coordinate is just have some compassion for yourself. It might be like you just aren't there. Right? Today it's like feeling a little tight in the quads. So my torso is trying to get the stretch up. Breathing. It only helps. Okay, now lead the waist forward. Place the blocks a little bit out to the side. If you don't practice sleeping pigeon, then you will be finding a different shape to get into. But one way we're going to go is walk the left foot to the right side of the mat, the heel and the toes, or I just say the ball of the foot and the heel. Let the left knee be open, and then I lean forward into that left hip opener, pigeon pose. So my left foot is touching to my bolster now. It's connected, it's touching. It's not on top of the bolster, it's in front of it, okay? That would be crazy if it was on top. Okay, now, if you're not practicing this, but you can get on your bolster, right? You might have to step forward, take a seat. Your variation is your left foot is on a block. I like this one a lot. You can put sand on the thigh, on the right thigh. You can put a ball under the knee. Yep, my left knee's up too high. I can't get the ball under that one, but this one works. I like to kind of take away that goal of getting my knee to the floor all the time. I'm really trying to work on going kind of unlearning stuff that seems kind of burned in my memory I should do. So if I kind of let that knee have a little lift, and then when I tilt forward at the hinge of the hips, feeling into that left hip, my hands can reach back on the bolster. So if you decide, I want to try that one and come out of what I was in, you can always come up and shift into another variation. Breathe. So just feel the arch through the spine, whichever version you're in. Pigeon or seated pigeon, or I like to call this one hip juicer. Okay, now those of us that are in the seated version, between sides, just take the legs to kind of a little bit of a reach forward, just let them shake out a little bit, just shake it out. Right, and then switch sides, so left foot goes in, right foot goes up. Those of us in the pigeon, right, we're gonna shift the legs. So we're gonna bring our right leg in, right? So if you were here like this, left foot in, you just lean into your left rear and then bring the right leg forward. And you kind of break dance your way to the other side, swing the leg back, but then you just keep it back. Okay, so you're trying to pivot on the flesh of the quad. That's why I do like this if I can maneuver it, just because of the positioning axis through the spine. Okay, so as I lower down my elbows, I could bring my forehead down to my hands, right? You can make a little stack of your hands and bring your forehead to it. Or you can have your elbows wide or on blocks, or your forehead on a block. Or a blanket, or anything. If you have an extra bolster, you can put your forehead there. And if you're taking the seated version, you're just sitting up on your bolster, placing your right foot on top, right? And left knee has the ball under it. Sandbags are optional. Okay, they may be overrated for this. We don't want to put too much pressure on the knee at all when it turns this way. So why would we do this? I mean, for the knee's sake, right? We're trying to get into our hips, that's why, okay? So one way we can do that is to motion our knees outwards and to lean forwards. So feeling where the inner thigh has that sensation and that pull. Kind of funny, it's like you're not like pulling with your hands, but you're kind of pulling that chi and the energy through the inner leg. It happens, right, when this position occurs. So what we're going to do in our final spinal next is we're going to actually take it from the inner kind of outer band of the hip, and then we're going to go across to the revolve core and then upside down. So I think it should work pretty good. We'll find out. Okay, now when you do begin that process of lifting back up, okay, some of you in pigeon are probably kind of in a leaning stage, right? So come back up and let's take our foot off the block, or we're going to come out of the pigeon pose. So if you're here, you're going to lean and come out. And I want you to turn and come off the bolster turn it to the wall for a moment. Have a blanket back here at the other end of your mat away from the wall in a fold, quarter fold. And take your bolster and push the edge of the bolster at the wall and let the leg stretch out. So you got your bolster here and it's tipped up and you lean forward. Now, generally it would be legs wide stance and lean forward like this, but that might be a little too extreme. It's only temporary, it's a moment. So if you need to bend the knees, put the feet on the floor, great. If you want to just feel what it's like to stretch them out, or if you want to bring the soles of your feet together, you can do that too. We've done enough of that motion with the knee joint, so I feel like it's good to move it the other way, but to each his own. Okay, now I'm far enough away from the wall where I feel like this is a little bit of a reach for me. And my sitting bones pressing. Okay, now let's take a turn. So we're going to put our bolster on the right side of the mat, and we're simply going to push forward with our seat, lower back, head on blanket. Blanket only under your head, not your neck. Bring your feet down, push into the feet, and move your hips to the left. And then right leg relaxes and left leg swings over to the bolster. Okay, that I feel like is a little swing. Okay, sand on the outer left thigh, final spinal, my friends, right? So getting to that place internally where we start to find the dynamic across the back of the pelvis and just the right amount of pull. Right, so if it feels like the sandbag kind of gives you the directional motion to feel like you're opening up and creating release, but if it does feel like it blocks something, it's too much, you can always shed it or move it. You know, maybe you move it a little lower, maybe you pivot the sandbag. You kind of never know until you give some tries to it. It's going to be on the left leg, so that's a little limitation. But you can always turn the sandbag and hold onto your leg with your hand. That could be nice. And head can roll to the left or stay right up in center. And just relaxing your breath. And feeling what is receiving. Is it body? Is it mind? Sometimes holding with your hand is not always the best option. It could start like that, and then you realize that that's more energy of pulling than you need. Now bring your head back center. Get your sand. If it feels okay, you could slide it down to the rib cage or belly and move your hips back center. Grasp the bolster or kick it, one or the other, move it to the left. And then when I push into my feet, I'm going to lift my hips and move them to the right. And then left leg relaxes, right leg swings over to the bolster. That's kind of interesting. When you have your sand in your middle and you move, you feel like you got a weighted vest on. Some of those weighted vests do have more of the weight towards the pelvis. It's a good idea. So feel the turn in the rib cage. So my spine has that spatial, of course, it has the length, but you're working on influencing circulation in all areas. That's kind of the basic premise of the work, right? So when you feel the heart gently open, you might change on this side. You might have your hands on your ribs. You might have the sandbag turned and your hand on the knee, or your arms just vast and open. Yeah, just even thinking they can go wider and just resting the heart. Head can roll, head can be centered. Now feel if the belly has that width or if it feels like it goes up and down. See if you can kind of merge the rib, belly, and then kind of that deep organ, which is where we're going next with our legs up the wall. So I think of 3-part breath sometimes as just simplify, like rib, belly, deep organ, right? So that kind of blends it all together in the third stage of it. Slide the sand off. Just carefully roll to your left. Bring your knees up a little bit. Slide your hands down to the knees a little bit. And then drag your blanket towards the wall and your bolster. Okay? So we have a bolster right up at the wall or a blanket. The blanket stack, 1-fold, 2-folded blankets might be ideal for you versus this bulky bolster. Okay? So you get to decide. I think I just have this in my mind. I should do the big bolster, but it probably is going to give you some similar benefits if you're more comfortable with blankets. So sit up on the bolster. If you have an eye pillow, grab that, or you need more blankie. You might want to have something a little bit warmer across your core. And you sit on the edge, and then you bring your shoulders under and around so your hips roll, but also your shoulder blades kind of spiral under to get upside down. There are a few ways to get into this. Some people that use the blankets only, the nice thing is you can kind of slide up to the wall on your back and not have to roll as much. So there's benefits, right, to different props that are a little more versatile with movement. Blankets are easier to move around than a bolster. So take a sandbag if you're going to use one. You can have sandbag on the ribs, but just be careful because it might roll back to your throat. When your eyes are closed, that could not be good. But a sandbag on the feet is ideal. So knees to chest, sand on the feet. Separate them just enough that when you lift up, you feel like it's like Tadasana legs, right? So I've got kind of this legs at attention, which is what Tadasana I think is at attention. And the thigh bones rest into my hip sockets. I like to feel how they kind of nestle into my hip sockets and create that weight bearing into them. It's kind of mesmerizing just to feel a leg perspective and to feel it because we're usually standing on our feet. Just to be, it's so kind for that support in your hips and your belly. And then you can add your blanket or an eye pillow. I think coverings are good to have in this final pose that we're choosing. And it's a pretty active pose, right? If you think about it, like, we're not doing like just a shavasana, but if you need to, rest down and have bolster under your back or your legs, you can go with that. Okay. The activity is for that lymphatic pump, right? That reverse flow to my groins, my leg pits, and my heart and my brain. So I'm trying to focus on that support for my immune system, my body's cleanup crew. So I give that cleanup crew an easy pathway back to where it goes down to the organs of elimination, right? Up to the thoracic duct, right? So it's a little challenge for it to travel that all the way there when you're standing on your feet. So just go upside down. Let your spine center and the chest feel open. Relax your fingers. And then just receiving your breath. And feeling the pathways. Feeling the waves of movement in the belly. Receiving nourishment with the belly motion. Relaxing the organs. And just returning the flow back towards the heart and the brain. Now, if the feet get a little cool, right, you know that the blood moves from that area, it returns back to the heart. So the blood pressure in the feet, right, that goes almost to zero. So at this point, you might find a lot of heat in the central station of the body. All that energy that moves out to the extremities comes from the center. But once that's replenished, at least as far as we can tell at this moment, feel the connection on the bolster, the blanket that you're lying back on. And then as you shift your feet off of the stretching up the wall, does it feel like they stretch? I mean, you might feel like it is not a stretch for your legs at this point. Okay, so when I move my feet away, I bend the knees. I like to practice this with eyes closed, just so I can really have that perceived sensation of movement in the body without studying it with my eyes and my vision. You could drop your stand overhead if you don't want to reach for it. You can motion it over to the side. And then as your hips can enjoy a little movement. You could kick your feet over to the side, get a bit bigger stretch into the hip joint. And you might find that's kind of lovely, right? The feet could be pretty cooled off now. You can feel different in the knees, the circulation around them. Now don't overdo it with the kicking over to the side. You don't have to do karate kicks. But as you roll to one side, feel where the back motion occurs in hips, in ribs, and roll. Let your hands help bring you up. And let's come up to take a seat on our bolster. If it's our blanket right against the wall, feel the movement of the knees out. Feel what's a good clutch of the legs and cross-legged. Is it a good clutch to feel the legs clutch together or feel them relax out? Sometimes I like to clutch them together, like fire logs kind of a thing. Well, that would be stacking them, but you know what I mean. Pushing them a little bit in and then bring my hands to press together. So feeling the energy center, the vitality, right? That deep vitality in your core. And with this, hopefully some affection for yourself from practice. That might be a far stretch of thought, but just considering that we're all bringing in wellness to ourselves, breathing it inwards, and the affection towards our community in practice. Take a deep breath in. Belly soft. And as you exhale,